The night was thick with summer heat when President Eleanor Hayes stepped out onto the White House balcony. The Potomac lay black and still under a swollen moon. She'd spent the evening in the Situation Room, parsing intelligence from the new James Webb Deep Survey, a flicker of something impossible beyond Neptune. Down in the bowels of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, astrophysicist Drive. Marcus Green stared at his monitor. The object wasn't a comet, wasn't an asteroid. It was a formation. Hundreds, no, thousands of metallic masses slipping out of hyperspace like schools of deep-sea predators. Across the Midwest, Captain Dana Monroe, decorated Marine pilot turned test commander at Area 51, ran a hand over her shaved head. The message from Space Command had been clear: we're seeing something, and it's headed this way. She'd been trained for rogue satellites, for missile interceptions, not for this. A world away, in a Nevada diner at 3 a.m., Jesse Cross, a conspiracy podcaster famous for his "Humans Are Not Alone" episodes, leaned toward his mic, whispering to an audience of millions. "They thought we were myths," he rasped, voice quaking. "But something's coming, and I think it knows us." Then, above the American heartland, the sky tore. A streak of molten light. Another. And another. Blank, underscore, blank. It began like a sunrise. But this was no sunrise. The Imperial Armada was descending. Their ships were monstrous wedges of alloy, glowing with insectoid eyes and folded spines. They blotted out constellations, turned the black sky into amber nightmare. On every television across the U.S., on Times Square jumbotrons, on gas station screens, on phones, people watched the impossible unfold. Eleanor Hayes demanded a connection to NORAD. "Tell me it's ours." "It's not ours, Madam President," came the gravelly reply. "They're alien." The first transmissions from the fleet were a language of shrieks and thunder. Every linguist, cryptographer, and AI model collapsed under the data. It was not a greeting. It was a countdown. Dr. Marcus Green locked himself in the comms room and rewound decades of research. He remembered the whispers from ancient cuneiform tablets found in Iran, references to sky lords who feared the hidden people. Hidden people, could they have meant us? The countdown hit zero. No sound. Just a pressure in the skull. A moan from the earth itself. Then, darkness. Power grids failed from Maine to California. Airplanes fell from the sky. The president watched as the Washington Monument cracked like bone. Captain Monroe scrambled F-35 interceptors from a Utah base, their afterburners screaming blue. But the Armada was waiting. The first wave of alien drones, needle-thin constructs with jaws like glass, unfurled from the mother ships. They sliced the interceptors apart mid-air without firing a shot, only humming. Across small towns in Ohio, children saw the drones blot out the stars and whispered, "The myths." At 2:04 a.m., a video surfaced from the Mariana Trench, U.S. Navy submarine USS Nevada tracking something older, deeper than the Armada itself, a signature rising from Earth's own core. Something enormous. Something human-shaped. Jesse Cross streamed the footage live, tears running down his cheeks. This is what I've been saying. We're not the weaklings they think. We're the nightmare. We're the story they tell their kids to keep them awake at night. In the White House bunker, President Hayes gripped the nuclear football. "If they're coming for us," she whispered to her defense chief, "they're about to find out who we really are." Sirens wailed across the Capitol like mechanical banshees. Emergency alerts erupted on every phone, every radio, every emergency broadcast channel. Somewhere above the clouds, the alien fleet formed a jagged crown across the planet, visible even in daylight. Inside the Pentagon's deepest level, President Eleanor Hayes faced her Joint Chiefs. The Situation Room had become a hive of frantic voices, half of them pleading for diplomacy, the other half screaming for retaliation. The national flag overhead fluttered in the recycled air, as if moved by an unseen breeze. General Collier, head of U.S. Space Command, slammed his fist on the steel table. "Madam President, these things don't travel light years to talk. We've seen their weapons in action. We're outmatched." Hayes's hands were trembling, but her eyes were steady. "Outmatched on paper," she said quietly. "They don't know who we are." Across the country, Americans in living rooms, barrooms, and college dorms stared at flickering screens. TikTok feeds filled with alien silhouettes, school hallways echoed with rumors, and talk radio hosts claimed it was a false flag operation. But under the bravado lay a cold pulse of fear, as if the whole nation sensed the approach of a predator it couldn't name. NASA's Drive. Marcus Green hunched over spectral data in a windowless lab in Maryland. His monitors mapped not just ships, but gravitational scars in the fabric of space. These weren't simple vessels, they were mobile ecosystems, carrying entire cities or hives. His assistant whispered, "If they're that big, what do they eat?" Marcus didn't answer. He already knew. At Nellis Air Force Base, Captain Dana Monroe suited up in a black flight harness. The Nevada dawn bled crimson through the hangar doors. She ran her fingers over her helmet's visor and muttered, "Let's see how mythical we really are." Around her, elite pilots strapped into cutting-edge fighters that might as well have been paper airplanes compared to the alien craft. Yet they climbed in anyway. Americans always did. On the streets of New York, conspiracy streamer Jesse Cross filmed himself against a sky of orange haze. "Listen to me," he shouted into his phone. "This isn't a drill. This is the fulfillment. For years have said we're not just a species. We're an extinction event waiting to happen." His comments flooded with laughing emojis and death skulls. Then, one by one, the laughing emojis stopped. The ships began to hum. It was not sound. It was vibration. Every window in Manhattan rattled. Every vein in every body throbbed in time. Dogs howled, birds wheeled in panic. A low red shimmer poured from the vessels, washing over skyscrapers like a second sunset. And then, above the Pacific, the first city vanished. Not bombed, not burned. Simply blinked out, replaced by a smear of afterimage and ash. Screens went black. The Pentagon's walls shook. NORAD lost its satellite network in a single stroke of invisible fire. In Montana, a little girl named Ava stared up from her farmhouse porch at the pinprick lights. She whispered to her brother, "They look scared." Her brother frowned. "Who?" "Them." Miles below the crust, something stirred. In a sub-basement of the Library of Congress, archivist Helen Zhao opened a cedar crate marked, 1899, restricted. Inside lay a leather-bound journal of Admiral Perry's last Arctic expedition. In spidery handwriting it read, "We saw the lights again. They call them humans. We are to be their next feast." At DARPA headquarters in Virginia, a senior analyst unearthed a sealed hard drive codenamed Prometheus, an old classified project built on myths from Sumerian, Norse, and Hopi sources. It contained not weapons, but warnings, sketches of beings with human silhouettes towering over alien civilizations, eyes like cold stars. And in the White House bunker, Eleanor Hayes saw her own face reflected in the polished nuclear football. Her Secret Service chief whispered, "Orders, Madam President," but she could not speak. She was hearing the hum again, inside her skull now, like an ancient lullaby from before Earth had oceans. In Houston, Marcus Green's equipment began receiving an anomalous frequency, buried beneath the alien hum. It was older than the fleet. It was coming from Earth itself. His computers translated the waveforms into a single phrase, "Remember WHOUR." Captain Monroe's squadron breached the exosphere. Alien interceptors swarmed like living razors. Her cockpit screamed with warning lights as each fighter blinked off the radar, one after another. But she kept climbing. In her earpiece, a voice, no call sign, no origin, whispered, "Do not fear. We awaken." Down in the Mariana Trench, the USS Nevada's sonar registered a shape rising from the mantle. 2 miles tall, humanoid, armored in basalt and iron. As if the Earth itself had been wearing a hidden weapon, waiting for a signal. Jesse Cross's live stream froze mid-scream. His chat feed, however, kept running with a single repeated comment from anonymous users, "We remember you." All at once, the fleet stopped moving. Not a single alien ship fired. Not a single drone stirred. A silence fell so complete it felt like the pause before a scream. Then, in every American's mind, whether on the subway, in a cornfield, or strapped into a fighter jet, the same image appeared. A colossal silhouette rising from Earth's oceans, eyes burning white, hair made of storm clouds, a face uncannily human but stretched to Titanic scale. The myth wasn't a story. It was a memory. President Hayes rose from her chair, hands trembling but her spine straight. "God help us," she whispered. "We're the monsters in their bedtime stories." And above the golden curve of the planet, the Armada recoiled. The world had no dawn that day. Across the Americas, the sky glowed a dull copper, as if sunrise had curdled into rust. News channels flickered with emergency bulletins, only to collapse into static. Air raid sirens became the nation's new heartbeat. Inside the White House bunker, President Eleanor Hayes watched live drone feeds from every military theater. Alien ships hovering over Los Angeles, Chicago, New Orleans, drones curling around the Statue of Liberty like steel locusts. The Secret Service stood silent, fingers resting on their triggers. She whispered to her defense secretary, "This is our first contact." He whispered back, "This is our last chance." At NASA, Drive, Marcus Green triangulated the hidden frequency from Earth's mantle. It now pulsed in exact counterpoint to the Armada's hum, a call and response between predator and prey, or something far older. He opened a direct channel to the White House. "Madam President," he said, voice shaking. "They're afraid. Not of our weapons, of us. Of what's inside us." Captain Dana Munro, her fighter jet battered from near misses, drifted in low Earth orbit, trying to catch her breath. Her squadron was gone. She alone had seen it, the giant silhouette rising through the Pacific, part tectonic plate, part living thing. Her HUD was dead, her radio hissing. Then the voice came again, low and ancient, echoing through her bones. "Daughter of Earth, open your eyes." In Las Vegas, conspiracy streamer Jesse Cross had barricaded himself inside a neon-lit motel room. His live feed ran grainy, showing an endless scroll of viewers. He held a pistol in one hand, his phone in the other. "They're scanning us," he rasped. "They're not here to colonize, they're here to finish what they started. But something's waking up. I saw it." His chat exploded with thousands of identical comments from different users. "We remember you. We remember you. We remember you." Then came the first true contact. Across Los Angeles, alien drones descended on freeways, their long limbs whispering over car roofs like silk. They did not shoot. They did not speak. They simply hovered, projecting lattices of light onto human faces as if scanning for something hidden beneath their skin. People screamed and fled. A child reached out a hand, and the drone recoiled. In the bunker, President Hayes received a private channel from the fleet. It was not audio. It was a direct injection of images into her mind. Black oceans, screaming stars, a memory of humans tearing through alien cities with weapons made of thought and lightning. She collapsed to her knees, gasping, "We did this to them." Meanwhile in Houston, Marcus Green overlaid the Armada's positions with ley lines, mythic routes drawn from ancient texts. Every alien ship hung above a site once linked to a legend of Star Killers, Chaco Canyon, Cahokia, the Black Hills. He muttered, "They're trying to cage it. They're not here to conquer, they're here to contain." Captain Munro's jet drifted over the Pacific. Beneath her, the ocean bulged, split, and a titanic shape emerged, an armored torso of living stone. Its eyes ignited like suns. Its head rose through the clouds, shedding hurricanes as it came. It looked upward, directly at her, as though recognizing its own. Her cockpit filled with a low, thunderous word, "Awake." On the ground in Seattle, commuters saw the water in Elliott Bay rise up into a column shaped like a hand, its fingers closing on an alien drone and crushing it to powder. Across the country, similar phenomena erupted, earthquakes, storms, tidal surges, all shaped like fragments of a gigantic human body trying to assemble itself. Jesse Cross's motel room lights flickered. His phone vibrated violently, leaping off the table. He caught it, eyes wide. The screen now displayed his own face, but with white eyes and stormcloud hair. A voice whispered through the speaker, "Speak the name." He whispered back, "What name?" "Your name." In the Pentagon, panic overtook strategy. Generals barked orders to launch the nuclear triad. But the missiles refused to fire, their guidance systems scrambled by the alien hum. President Hayes slammed her fist on the table. "We're not going to die on our knees." Marcus Green shouted into the open line, "Stop. Don't fire anything. They're provoking you. They want to trigger it before it's ready. Let it finish waking up." In Montana, little Ava sat beneath the farmhouse porch, drawing in the dirt. Her brother said, "Why are you drawing a monster?" She replied, "It's not a monster. It's our mom." The drawing was a spidery outline of the titanic figure rising from the ocean. Captain Munro's oxygen alarm screamed. Her jet spun out of control as the colossal shape below extended one basalt arm skyward, palm open. She hesitated only a moment, then ejected. Her parachute blossomed, carrying her down toward the open hand. She landed on a surface like cooled lava, trembling with seismic power. A voice filled the skies, audible in every human ear and every alien transmitter simultaneously. "You feared our return." Across the Armada, alien ships began to shudder, their golden glow dimming. Some broke formation, trying to flee. Others folded inward like crushed insects. President Hayes stared at the ceiling of the bunker as dust rained down. "My God," she whispered. "Were their nightmare." Marcus Green realized what was happening. "It's bonding with her," he muttered. "With Captain Monroe. She's the trigger. She's the first human it can reach." On the basalt hand, Monroe looked up into eyes the size of city blocks. She felt memories pour into her, battles fought before recorded history, alien worlds burning, humans as apex predators of the void. She staggered but did not break. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "Remember." Her veins lit with white fire. In Las Vegas, Jesse Cross screamed as the same fire coursed through his arms, etching runes into his skin. He dropped to his knees, gasping, "We're waking up." Alien drones everywhere began to screech at frequencies that shattered glass. They fired at the ground, at humans, at each other. The Armada fired massive beams into the Pacific, trying to destroy the rising Titan before it could fully manifest. The Titan raised its other arm and caught the beams like rain. Its eyes blazed brighter. Monroe's voice joined its, echoing over every loudspeaker, every TV, every phone in America. "We are not what you think." President Hayes ordered all forces to stand down. Every gun silent, she commanded. "Let it finish." Then came the first true counterstrike, not from Earth's weapons, but from Earth itself. The Titan's eyes unleashed twin spears of energy that tore through the Armada's central carrier. The explosion was silent but visible from every continent, a sun blooming in low orbit. Alien debris rained down like burning angels. Jesse Cross's phone finally went dark. His motel walls shook as shadowy hands of light clawed at the sky outside. He whispered, "We're the myth. We're the monsters." Marcus Green sat back from his console, tears streaking his face. "We didn't evolve," he muttered. "We were sealed." In Montana, Ava stood up, brushing dust from her dress. She smiled. "She's almost here." Captain Monroe knelt on the Titan's palm, fire raging through her body, eyes white with power. She could feel every heartbeat on Earth, every whisper of fear, every spark of rage. She was no longer just a pilot. She was the embodiment of something ancient and unstoppable. Above her, the Armada regrouped for a desperate strike. Thousands of ships aligned their weapons. The Titan tilted its head and smiled with a face made of continents. The sky over the Pacific was a ragged wound of light and shadow. The Titan's rising bulk had bent the weather itself. Hurricanes spiraled backward, thunderheads formed in perfect circles, and the ocean was no longer flat water but a living membrane, lifting and pulsing as though the planet had begun to breathe. Inside a commandeered aircraft carrier off the California coast, Admiral Victor Reyes watched his radar screens blank out one after another. He'd seen war, Fallujah, the Gulf of Aden, but never this. Every weapon system they had tried, railguns, hypersonic missiles, directed energy beams, either failed or was swallowed by alien counterfields. Now his fleet floated helplessly beneath a sky of alien fire. Yet, for the first time, Reyes felt not defeat but a stirring in his blood, a primitive thrill. Something about the Titan made him want to roar. Captain Dana Monroe could hear its pulse in her skull. Each throb was like a drum at the dawn of time, echoing across her nervous system. Her boots sank slightly into the basalt of the Titan's palm, which radiated a deep, slow warmth. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Don't lose it, Dana. Don't lose it." But another voice rose beneath hers, louder, older, "You never lost it. We are you." In Montana, little Ava's drawings began to move. Crayon lines rearranged themselves into a full map of the Pacific Rim, each stroke glowing faintly. Her brother backed away. "Ava, stop it." She looked at him with eyes that flickered pale blue. "It's teaching me," she said. "It wants us to remember." Meanwhile, alien troops finally made planetfall. Needle-limbed creatures stepped off shimmering platforms onto California beaches, moving with insect grace. Their armor was alive, shifting colors like cuttlefish. They carried no visible weapons, but as Marines aimed rifles at them, the air thickened, bullets slowed, and ricocheted. Backward. In seconds, entire platoons were incapacitated by invisible force. Jesse cross-streamed the invasion from a stolen government feed. His hands shook as he tried to narrate. They're not here to negotiate, they're searching, scanning every city, every DNA sample they can find. They're looking for, his voice cut out. He stared at the camera, eyes glassy. They're looking for me. Deep under Houston, Marcus Green broke every security protocol, activating Project Covenant, a lattice of quantum processors built to decode alien signals. For a moment it worked. The Armada's language unraveled into words, and one phrase repeated over and over: contain the breed. Contain the breed. Contain the breed. Above the Pacific, the Titan opened its mouth, not to roar, but to exhale. The air around it became a shimmering aurora. Alien ships instantly folded shields inward as though bracing for impact. Captain Monroe clutched her chest, suddenly aware of every neuron firing in her brain. "What are you doing to me?" she gasped. The voice came back, "We are synchronizing." The synchrony spread. In New Orleans, a jazz trumpeter on a darkened street found his trumpet vibrating with the same pulse, playing a low note by itself. In Alaska, a fisherman dropped his net as the ice under his boots hummed like a bass string. Across the Midwest, streetlights blinked in perfect rhythm with the Titan's heartbeat. Admiral Reyes stared at the carrier's compass, its needle spun, then froze, pointing not north but toward the Titan. He murmured, "It's calling the planet." The alien ground troops closed in on Los Angeles's downtown core, clustering around the Old Pueblo district. Without warning, the asphalt beneath them cracked open, geysers of molten rock shooting skyward, engulfing the troops in incandescent lava shaped like grasping fingers. Witnesses swore they heard a low female voice laugh across the city before the molten hands withdrew back into the earth. President Hayes stood before a bank of dead monitors in the bunker, her staff's faces pale in the glow of emergency lights. "It's spreading," she whispered. "It's everywhere." The Secretary of State murmured, "What's everywhere?" Hayes's voice cracked. "Us." Back on the Titan's palm, Captain Monroe's veins flared white. She fell to one knee. Images poured into her mind. Millions of stars, alien cities collapsing, humans like ghosts moving through battlefields. She tried to resist, but the Titan whispered, "Your species is a weapon. They locked you in flesh. We hold the key." In Las Vegas, Jesse Cross fell backward as his phone screen cracked on its own, displaying a single word: awaken. His motel walls bulged as if something behind them was pushing outward. He ran to the window. Outside, dozens of strangers stood in the street, eyes glowing faintly, murmuring in unison. The alien fleet finally launched its main assault. A cascade of energy beams raked across the Pacific, boiling water to steam. Yet the Titan barely flinched. Its head tilted, eyes locking on Captain Monroe as though awaiting permission. She raised one trembling hand. "Do it," she whispered. A shockwave burst outward, not a sound but a ripple in reality. Alien beams bent mid-air, curving back toward their own ships. In an instant, half the Armada's weapons tore themselves apart, detonating into fields of golden plasma. All across America, civilians felt the pulse. Some collapsed, others stood taller, eyes glinting as if some buried strand of DNA had just been switched on. Marcus Green's instruments exploded with data. "We're waking up," he muttered. "We're all waking up." Ava dropped her crayon and whispered, "Now she remembers." The sky over Earth was no longer a dome but a battlefield. Where there had been constellations, now there was only fire, alien vessels blotting out the stars, splintering into swarms of blade-shaped craft, their golden carapaces glinting with cold intent. But the ocean below no longer trembled, it pulsed. The Titan stood waist-deep in the Pacific like a colossus risen from myth, basalt flesh steaming, its eyes twin suns. Captain Dana Monroe stood on its palm, her flight suit torn and blackened, but her body lit from within by a storm she could not name. Around her, lightning twisted itself into shapes, symbols she somehow understood but could not speak. The Titan tilted its massive head toward her, and for a heartbeat she saw herself reflected in its eyes, scaled up 1,000-fold, luminous, a creature of power and rage. On the carrier off California, Admiral Reyes clutched the bridge rail. "It's not just the Titan anymore," he said. "Look." On shore, ordinary people began to move differently. A dockworker caught a falling crane as though gravity had halved. A nurse in a Los Angeles raised her hands and a tremor in the floor knocked alien drones back into walls, a child's scream shattered armored windows a block away. Whatever had been locked inside humanity was spilling out. Inside the White House bunker, President Hayes stood before a map of the world turned red with alien incursion points. She stared at Marcus Green on the secure line. "Tell me this isn't happening," she said. "It is," Marcus said softly. "You're seeing a re-emergence event. They called us, the breed. We were sealed, fragmented, scattered across time. The Titan isn't attacking. It's synchronizing." Above, the Armada made its next move. Thousands of small pods detached from the great carriers and fell like seeds toward the Pacific Rim. On impact they erupted into towers of shimmering crystal, bending space around them. Whole districts of San Francisco folded like paper, reappearing upside down in the bay. Monroe felt the pull in her bones. The Titan's massive fingers curled around her like cathedral walls. Its voice reverberated inside her chest. "Their cage descends. Break it." She raised her hand. A bolt of white energy snapped from her fingertips to the sky. The nearest alien tower cracked, shuddered, then exploded outward in a ring of molten glass. On the streets of Seattle, Jesse Cross staggered through a crowd of people whose eyes flickered with pale light. He was no longer streaming, the stream had become him. Voices whispered through his skull, thousands of them, overlapping like surf. He found a rooftop view of the bay just as the Titan's second arm rose above the clouds. The sound was not thunder but millions of heartbeats aligning. "We're doing this," he whispered. "We're actually fighting back." Admiral Reyes saw the Titan's gesture and barked an order. "All remaining ships, fall behind it. Use it as cover." Fighters darted through the air, weaving around arcs of lightning, their pilots no longer panicked but exultant, as though ancient instincts were taking over. In Houston, Marcus Green traced the frequency to an even deeper source. The Earth's core itself pulsed with the same rhythm, a planetary heartbeat older than biology. "It's like an immune system," he muttered. "It's waking up its cells." He patched into the emergency broadcast system. "To anyone who can hear this, don't resist it. Let it happen." President Hayes stepped onto the surface of the bunker's helipad, the first president in history to walk out into an invasion. Around her, Secret Service agents' eyes glowed faintly, their hands steady on their weapons but pointed at the ground. She looked up at the Titan miles away, then at the alien fleet blotting the stars. "We will not be caged," she said aloud. The Armada responded. Their flagship, 5 miles long, bristling with spines, tilted downward. A singularity weapon formed at its prow, a dark pearl of compressed space. All across the fleet, the golden hulls dimmed as power rerouted into the weapon. Even the Titan paused, sensing the threat. On the Titan's palm, Monroe gasped as her vision shifted. She could see not only the flagship but its interior, thousands of alien minds in panic, priests of a civilization older than Earth chanting containment rites. She understood their terror. To them, she was the harbinger of extinction. The Titan's voice boomed, "We will not fall again." Monroe's veins blazed brighter. Her body lifted from the Titan's palm, suspended in an invisible column of energy. Her voice emerged layered with another, older tone. "You tried to erase us," she said. "Now we remember." She flung out both arms. Around the planet, newly awakened humans answered. In cities and deserts, on ships and farms, people lifted their hands skyward, channeling fragments of the Titan's power. Weather bent to their will, storms curled like fists, fault lines hummed, rivers rose into the air and became spears of ice. The alien singularity weapon fired. A beam of condensed dark gravity cut through the atmosphere, warping clouds into spirals. It struck the Titan's chest, yet instead of piercing, it sank into the basalt and vanished, absorbed like rain into dry earth. For a moment the world held its breath. Then the Titan exhaled. A wave of force surged outward, flattening alien towers, toppling carriers, sending drones spiraling into the ocean. The wave was not mere energy but information, coded resonance that dismantled alien technology at the atomic level. On the carrier bridge, Admiral Reyes gripped the rail as every screen lit up with alien distress calls. "They're falling apart," he murmured. In Montana, Ava stood in her yard, arms outstretched. Around her, the prairie grass bent in perfect concentric circles. She whispered, "Now we're free." In Las Vegas, Jesse Cross fell to his knees as the whispers in his head resolved into one voice, the Titans, thanking him for speaking its name, for keeping the myth alive. He wept, not in fear but in recognition. Yet even in retreat, the Armada adapted. Dozens of smaller carriers warped space, forming a new lattice, one designed not to cage but to collapse. Marcus Green saw the pattern on his monitors and shouted into an open channel, "They're trying to trigger a fail-safe. If they complete that lattice it'll tear a hole through the Pacific and drop the Titan into a black zone." Monroe's eyes snapped open. She could see it too. She spoke to the Titan without words, "Take me there." The Titan's fingers rose, flicking her like a beam of light across miles of atmosphere. She streaked toward the lattice, a comet trailing human fire. She tore through the first carrier, then the second, her hands ripping open hulls as though they were paper. Alien soldiers inside shrieked but did not fight. They fell to their knees, covering their heads. President Hayes, watching from the ground, felt her own heartbeat sync with Monroe's. "Finish it," she whispered. On the final carrier, Monroe reached the core and pressed her glowing hands against a crystalline engine older than recorded time. It vibrated, trying to fold space. She whispered, "Not this time." The engine cracked. The lattice collapsed. Space unfolded back to normal with a thunderclap visible from orbit. The Titan rose higher from the Pacific, now fully formed, shoulders like mountains, eyes like novas. Its voice filled the sky, "We remember." Across the Armada, chaos. Ships collided. Drones went limp, falling into the sea like dead insects. The Singularity weapon fizzled into harmless mist. For the first time in cosmic memory, the Imperial Armada began to retreat. For a heartbeat, the war paused. Above Earth, the scattered remnants of the Armada drifted like dying embers. The Titan towered over the Pacific, shoulders glistening with seawater and molten rock, eyes fixed on the stars. And on its palm, Captain Dana Monroe knelt, her body still radiating the afterglow of the lattice's destruction. But peace lasted only seconds. High above, the Armada's flagship split apart like an insect shedding its carapace. From its core emerged something older and darker, a shape that was not a ship at all but a living superstructure, blacker than the void, ribbed like an exoskeleton. It unfolded in silence, eclipsing the moon. Marcus Green, watching from Houston, whispered, "That's no carrier. That's the Warden." The Warden was not built to conquer but to erase. It carried a weapon known only in alien myths, the Oblivion Spine, a filament of collapsed dimension wound into a spear. Even the Titan shuddered as the Warden raised it. In the White House bunker, President Hayes steadied herself on the rail. Her staff stared at the live feeds in stunned silence. "If that thing hits," she said, "there won't be a planet left to fight for." Admiral Reyes barked into his comm, "All hands. Draw its fire." But no missiles launched. The Warden's field had already nullified human technology. Jets fell from the sky like stones. On the Titan's palm, Monroe rose, swaying, her body a lighthouse of pale fire. She could feel the Warden's mind probing hers, a vast cold intelligence that had hunted her kind for eons. "You should have stayed sealed," it whispered. "Now we finish the work." Monroe's own voice rose in answer, layered with the Titan's. "You fear what you cannot cage." She leapt from the Titan's palm, soaring upward through the storm, propelled not by engines but by the surge of Earth's own power. Lightning coiled around her arms, her hair streaming like comet tails. The Warden turned its Oblivion Spine toward her. Space around its tip shriveled, stars bending into knives. Down below, Ava stood on the prairie, arms spread, eyes white as she murmured a rhyme older than English. Around her, thousands of other children began humming the same tone, a human chorus rising across continents. Rivers turned upward, mountains shifted, air itself thickened into invisible hands pushing Monroe higher. In Las Vegas, Jesse Cross walked barefoot into the street as neon signs flickered out one by one. He had become a node, a transmitter. Voices from every awakened human converged through him into a single phrase. He whispered it, and the sound traveled not through air but through the bones of the world, "Remember." On the carrier bridge, Admiral Reyes gasped as the ocean around the Titan rose in a perfect spiral, a stairway of water and stone reaching toward the Warden. The Titan began to climb. Each step birthed tsunamis, yet the seas calmed instantly after, as though obeying. President Hayes stood on the White House lawn now, no longer hiding. Around her, Secret Service agents knelt involuntarily, hands over their ears as a low thrumming built. She lifted her face to the sky and whispered, "Show them what we are." Above, Monroe and the Titan reached the Warden. The alien superstructure lashed out with tendrils of pure gravity, slicing through space like whips. Each strike could have carved a moon, but the Titan caught them in its fists, basalt arms cracking, reforming instantly. The Oblivion spine glowed. The Warden aimed directly at Earth. Monroe hurled herself between the spear and the planet. Her arms crossed before her chest, her eyes like novas. Not again, she said. The spear fired. Silence. Then, impact. A shockwave tore through her, through the Titan, through the very crust of the Earth. Every awakened human screamed simultaneously. Mountains bent, the ocean roiled. The sky flickered black. For an instant, the Pacific sank a mile, exposing trenches older than life. But Monroe did not fall. She held the spear in her bare hands. The Oblivion spine shrieked like a living thing, its compressed dimensions buckling. Lightning burst from her palms, spider webbing across the spear's surface. She roared, and the roar was echoed by billions of human throats. "You locked us away," she said. "Now we're free." The Titan pressed its massive hands over hers, adding its strength. Together they twisted. The Oblivion spine cracked. Space unfolded, releasing a blinding cascade of light. The Warden recoiled, its hull fracturing. Across the planet, awakened humans became conduits. In cities and deserts, energy rose from their bodies, streaming skyward in ribbons of white fire that joined above the clouds, weaving into a lattice of their own. Marcus Green stared at the global sensor readouts. "We're making something," he whispered. "We're making a net." The net of human energy wrapped around the Warden, pinning its tendrils, neutralizing its field. For the first time, the predator of myths found itself caught. On the prairie, Ava smiled faintly. "It can't hurt us now," she said. "She's showing us how." The Titan's eyes flared, and its voice boomed across space, "We were never your prey." Monroe floated before the Warden's fractured hull, arms spread. "You came to erase us," she said. "But you've reminded us what we are." Her body glowed so brightly it outshone the sun. The Warden shuddered, emitting a chorus of alien prayers. Then a final message pulsed into every human mind: "If you awaken fully, the stars will burn." Monroe's expression hardened. "Then let them burn." She thrust her hands forward. The Titan mirrored her. Together they poured the combined force of awakened humanity into the Warden's core. Its black hull turned white-hot, then transparent, then simply gone, erased not with violence but with reclamation, dissolved back into the void from which it had been summoned. Silence fell again. Above Earth, debris drifted like snow. The last alien drones went limp, sinking into the ocean. On the carrier, Admiral Reyes lowered his binoculars. We won," he whispered. "We actually won." Marcus Green wiped his eyes, staring at the readouts. "Not yet," he muttered. "Something's still coming." Because even as the Warden disintegrated, a new sound rose, not alien, not human, but the planet itself humming in a lower, deeper tone. The Titan turned its head toward Monroe, as if unsure what it had unleashed. On the prairie, Ava dropped to her knees, her small voice trembling. She opened the last door. In Las Vegas, Jesse Cross's eyes rolled back. He whispered, "It's not over." This was only the gate. President Hayes felt the ground under her feet tremble. She raised her eyes to the sky. "What's coming now?" she murmured. The clouds above the Pacific swirled into a perfect spiral, and through it bled a light not from any sun, a light older than galaxies. The spiral widened until it filled half the sky, its edges glowing like the inside of a forge. Winds howled across the Pacific Rim, bending skyscrapers, toppling cargo cranes, but the ocean stayed eerily calm, as though holding its breath. The Titan's massive head tilted back, its eyes flickering between white and black. Monroe floated just above its shoulder, her aura dimming now, her skin streaked with hairline fractures of light. She could feel the draw coming from beyond the spiral, something pulling at her soul, the way a tide pulls at the shore. Around the world, awakened humans collapsed in unison, overwhelmed by the vibration rising from the rift. Marcus Green slammed his hands over his ears though the sound was not audible, it was inside the blood itself. President Hayes gripped a railing on the south lawn as the air around her turned viscous, resisting every movement. Then the voice came, not alien, not human, but planetary. It echoed in every mind, in every mountain, in every circuit: "We are older still." Monroe gasped, realizing with a dread deeper than warships or weapons that the Armada had not been their ultimate predator. They had merely been keeping something else from waking. The spiral above the Pacific kept widening until it eclipsed the entire sky. Day turned to a blue-black twilight, and the stars overhead shifted like frightened animals, moving out of their ancient constellations. The Titan stood frozen mid-stride, its colossal arms held out as if bracing against an invisible tide. Monroe hovered just above its shoulder, the light around her flickering like a dying flame. She felt a pressure behind her eyes, not pain but memory, the awakening of something she had never lived but somehow remembered. Down on the carrier, Admiral Reyes slammed a phone against the console. "We lost contact with every satellite. It's like the sky isn't there anymore," he said. In Houston, Marcus Green stared at his instruments, which now showed not the usual orbital paths but spirals and fractals descending toward Earth. He whispered to no one, "They weren't invading us. They were containing it." On the prairie, Ava clutched her chest. "It's here," she said. Across the planet, the awakened humans who had moments before been heroes now lay trembling, some weeping, some laughing, their powers flickering out. Jesse Cross staggered into a hotel lobby in Vegas, his phone still in hand. His stream had gone black, but millions still watched. "This is it," he murmured into the dead camera. "This is the thing they were afraid of." Above the Pacific, the spiral solidified into a single column of light. From it descended not a ship, not a creature, but a memory-given shape, a cathedral of shifting geometry, black and silver, whiter than continents, yet somehow weightless. It cast no shadow but drained all color from the world. The Titan tilted its head back, its basalt body trembling. Its voice boomed across the oceans, "We remember you." A second voice answered, deeper than any thunder. It spoke no words, only a tone that cracked icebergs and flattened mountains. Every awakened human clutched their skulls as images flashed in their minds. A time before Earth, before stars, when beings of pure concept roamed a blank universe. This was one of them. Monroe's body arched backward under the psychic impact. Through her eyes she saw what it saw. The Armada had been its jailers, Earth its lock. Humanity's awakening had been the key. She looked down at her hands, the last sparks of power fading. "We set it free," she whispered. President Hayes stood on the White House roof now, hair whipping in the cyclone winds. Her agents crouched behind her but could do nothing. She raised her arms and screamed into the sky, "If you're older than the stars, then you know our choice, we fight." The cathedral being unfolded 100 limbs of living light. Each one ended in an eye the size of an ocean, staring down at her, at Monroe, at every living human. The air filled with the smell of ozone and crushed stone. The Titan stepped forward, water parting around its legs. Its eyes flared, its fists clenched. But when it raised its arm to strike, the limbs simply dissolved, no impact, no resistance, as though striking a memory. Monroe knew then, force would not work. This was no Armada, no warden. This was a concept, a truth. Her mind reeled back through everything she had learned in a single day, the whispers, the Titan, the way billions of human heartbeats had synchronized. "We're not supposed to destroy it," she said aloud. "We're supposed to remember it." Marcus Green, tapping into every remaining broadcast tower, shouted into the microphone, "Everyone on Earth, listen to her. Remember." Across the planet, humans raised their faces to the storm. The power flickered back to life, but this time not as weapons. They began to hum, to sing, to recall stories they had never heard but somehow knew. The first myths, the first names, the first songs ever sung by anything anywhere. The cathedral paused. Its 100 limbs trembled. Monroe floated forward, hands out, palms up. "You're not a prison," she said. "You're a story. And we're the memory of you." She let the Titan's fading energy merge with her own. Her body dissolved into a cloud of light that spread across the sky, forming an enormous human silhouette embracing the cathedral. The deeper voice slowed, its tone changing pitch until it resembled a heartbeat. The storm stopped. The spiral stilled. In Las Vegas, Jesse Cross whispered to his dead stream, "We're holding it. We're not fighting, we're remembering." On the prairie, Ava and thousands like her began to chant the same word, not in English but in a language older than Earth, a single syllable meaning home. The cathedral folded its limbs inward, shrinking. Its color deepened to gold, then to clear light. It pulsed once, twice, then collapsed into a single point, no larger than a star, hovering above the Titan's hand. The Titan raised that hand, gazed at the point, and then bowed its massive head. It opened its basalt chest, revealing a hollow chamber, and drew the point inside. The light vanished. The Titan straightened. Its eyes dimmed. Then it, too, began to crumble, stone flaking into the ocean, basalt dissolving like ash. Monroe's voice echoed across every radio, every phone, every human mind one last time. It's safe now. We're safe now. And then she was gone. Silence. For the first time in hours, sunlight broke through the clouds. Ships drifted, powerless but afloat. The ocean settled. Birds rose from the trees. President Hayes stood trembling, tears streaking her face. Around her, agents slowly stood, their eyes returning to normal. It's over, she whispered. She did it. In Houston, Marcus Green stared at his instruments. Every reading had gone flat. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, whispering a thank you he didn't know how to finish. On the prairie, Ava looked up at the empty sky. She's not gone, she said softly. She's everywhere now. In Las Vegas, Jesse Cross picked up his phone and began to speak again, his stream reconnecting. Millions watched as he said, "This is day one of the new world. We're going to have to build it." Above the Pacific, only a vast circle of calm water remained, perfectly still, reflecting a sky full of new constellations. The Armada was gone. The Titan was gone. Monroe was gone. But in every human heart a faint echo remained, a pulse, a rhythm, a myth reborn. President Hayes turned to the cameras, voice hoarse but steady. "We thought we were myths," she said. "We were wrong. Now we remember." Far beyond the solar system, in the quiet dark between galaxies, something stirred at the edge of hearing, a ripple of acknowledgement, as if the universe itself had taken note of Earth's stand. But for now, the stars held steady. And on the horizon, dawn rose, streaking the sky with light.